start with some introductions. So I'm Lauren Clinnick. This is my first panel for the day. This is my second GX. GX is super awesome and really, really happy to be here. Happy to be speaking again in terms of like representation and diverse representation. So my day job is working as a games marketer. In my spare time, I'm playing more games, but also a big consumer of TV, film, comics, all sorts of things. So I might be a little bit like game heavy in terms of the conversation I'm having today, but I'll be braiding in a lot of other forms of media as well. So, and yeah, full disclosure, James and I work together as well. How about you, James? Who are you?
My name is James Dominguez. I used to be a video games journalist working for Fairfax, and these days I'm working at a small independent PR agency in Melbourne called Clinnick, which is run by some really amazing people. And I'm not just saying it.
Yeah, and like run by a whole bunch of queers as well, which is awesome. Yeah. So it's a very good workplace. The games industry is the first industry that I've been able to really be out in as well, which is super awesome. It's really good and important to me that the games industry is one where we're actually having these conversations a lot. Way more than tech investment, way more than hardware encryption that I used to work in, where they're still like, women in tech, huh? Like, they're really at that very basic level. And in games, you know, we're not perfect. The industry has a lot of issues. The consumers have a lot of issues. The media has a lot of issues. But we definitely find that we're having these discussions in public. And that's super, super valuable. And I just want to acknowledge that we're able to be here and out today. Everyone is safe in this building today. There are lots of people that could never come to this panel. They can't do that in their country, they can't do that because of political reasons. So no matter how we feel or how much fun we have today, it's really important to me politically and otherwise that we're actually able to be here and be safe. So talking about bisexual visibility and erasure that happens in media, there's a lot of layers to this. We really want to hear about people's individual opinions, and if people have particular characters or depictions they'd like us to discuss, that sounds awesome. But James, I'll get you to start us off with a thought.
I'm going to start off with a bit of a whinge. I hope that's okay.
We're all whinges here.
A little thing that I get frustrated with in the mainstream press, and it happens in games reporting as well, is the whole, when you see, like when the original Mass Effect came out, and no pun intended, people would say, oh, this game has gay relationships in it, this has a gay kiss, it has a gay sex scene, and I sort of play the game and go, seems kind of fine to me. And yeah, the G word just seems to be the reflexive default. Because apparently I've been told that there's, I don't play Overwatch, I know I'm a terrible person, but I've been told that there was a lot of debate around people going, oh, this character, so what was her name?
Tracer,
there you go, that's her. So people going, oh, she's gay, and other people going, well, we don't really know, is she bi? And like, it was like, she's same-sex attracted, can we just sort of leave it at that, is that okay? Unless it's canonically stated otherwise. There are a lot of assumptions made, especially headlines. Headline writing is one of those things that I think makes all of our news and media so much simpler and dumber. It's like, how can we try to capture a complex, multifaceted idea and, you know, with a bit of alliteration, maybe a pun, be in 24 type font at the top of the page. And and like the fact is, bisexual is what, 9 letters, 8 or 9 letters, gay is 3. So it's like, yeah, that leaves us more space for alliteration and puns.
Yeah, and that is something really interesting where if you're a queer person or a bisexual person, you often have to come out and then come out again and then come out again, right? So you go to a gay club and you're with a group of lesbians and they're like, cool, you like women in this club. But then they're like, oh yeah, and here's my boyfriend. And they're like, what? You know, and like you have to be like, yes, I identify myself as pan, queer, like I'm a lot more comfortable with those labels than bisexual myself. Some people find the term to be problematic in that for some it suggests that there is like a binary of genders, there's male, female. James and I absolutely know and understand that's completely not the case. So for me, queer is the label that I'm most comfortable with. But again, that issue of like, I don't fit in with straight people, I don't fit in with gay people, and I'm always like going to give someone this really weird surprise when I talk about like my past or who I'm dating at the time and everything. So that feeling of you have to come out, maybe you have to come out again, that's actually pretty exhausting.
It's that moment where you're just thinking, you're saying a sentence and you're thinking a few words ahead and you're going, I'm about to say boyfriend, aren't I? Oh, and it's almost like you've lost control of the car and you're heading for a tree. So I can't bail out of this sentence. I'm saying a sentence that is going to end with the word boyfriend, and I just know it's going. You know that Tim the Tallman Taylor noise that people make when you go. They go.
Yes.
So that noise is going to come. I'm going to say boyfriend, and then there's just around the room. There's just going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And like maybe you're a poly person, and maybe you're dating more than one person, and maybe there's a masculine presenting person and a feminine presenting person, and you can be like, look at my family, look at my boyfriends and girlfriends, and here is this concise picture. And that's something that, you know, not all of us can do or have at any one time and be like, here's my family photo, look at this, look at all of this, accept all of this, no problem. Often it's like, oh yes, I brought my girlfriend to work, so everyone's met my girlfriend, but then, you know, I would then have to make a big point of bringing up past boyfriends or something, for example, right? So it can be like super awkward, and people are like, you're just really rubbing it in my face, and I'm like, no, I'm just trying to like be visible, like I'm just trying to be really clear here. There's also an issue that makes me very uncomfortable in that bisexuality is like the sexiest sexuality. Like, you know, the woman who would like, you know, sleep with anyone and be super sexually available regardless of genders and things like that.
And there's nearly always a villain.
Yeah. Well, that's something that people are talking about in the hashtag as well, is about the rogue bisexual trope. Thank you very much for that, Barbara. So there is this thing of like, you're a Loki-esque character, right? You're like an agent of chaos. What's she gonna do? You know. So there is this trope of the roguish bisexual, and like the rogue bisexual is like the edgy, sexy, sometimes literally class rogue. Isabella, haha. And yeah, for me, I'm like, okay, I think we just do need a healthier range of like a very boring bisexual person, a very non-sexual bisexual person. I don't equate non-sexual and boring at all to be the same, but we actually just don't have a rainforest of depictions, right? It's like, I'm sexy and edgy and dangerous, and there's often not much else. Or a serial killer. There's a lot of bisexual serial killers in media, and that's probably like my problematic fave kind of trope, like Hannibal or Keller from Oz or something like that. And I'm like, I really should not be so into this. But it's damaging. Like it is damaging that there is such a limited depiction.
Yeah, we bisexuals are so voracious.
Yeah. Have you seen any like non-sexy, edgy bisexual person in any form of media? I think we're always, you know, asterisk edgy.
Well, I don't think Olivia Wilde can ever not be sexy. Mm-hmm. But her character, it's 13, isn't it, on House, where it's, at least, I didn't watch the whole series, I don't know what happened after a certain season, but where, at least the first year or so that she was introduced, she wasn't really presented as, you know, as sexual, and nothing but sex. She was a doctor, she was a capable doctor who, in at least one scene that made me laugh, just made one of her colleagues go, do the Tim the Tallman Taylor by saying, you know, just dropping into conversation that she's had boyfriends and girlfriends and she identified as bisexual, which made me just go, yes. Oh my God, someone used the B word on TV. That's sort of, it's just that magical thing. There's a thing that my wife likes to say, which is a bit of mild swearing coming up, which is, it's all about the dicks. In mainstream depictions of sexuality, it's like a woman can have, you know, all sorts of same-sex contact, but if she's into dicks at all, just a little bit, then she's bi at most and probably secretly straight and just sort of fooling around with girls for fun. Whereas if a man comes within, you know, a metre of another man's penis, he's gay for life. That double standard is very strange.
Yeah, it's super duper weird, and a lot of people, and there were good things to say about the sort of sex educator and you know, advocate Dan Savage, for example, right? There's also a lot of things that are very problematic about Dan Savage. Heaps and heaps and heaps. And a thing that he always goes back to, and actually made a damaging impression on me as a teenager, was his discourse around saying, well, men's sexualities just aren't very fluid or flexible. So there's maybe some bisexual men, but not many. But most women, definitely bisexual. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like now I know that that's ridiculous, but it is actually pretty damaging to make some people feel like they have to choose.
Can I talk about my favourite worst thing that Dan said to me? Because you can put together a top 10 of the worst things Dan said to say about bisexuals. Mine was, he actually said that if a teenager came to him and said they identified as bi, he'd be less likely to believe them than if they said they were gay.
Ugh.
And I wanted to reach through the computer screen and slap him upside the head. Because that's just, oh, that's so awful. It's awful on so many levels, and the more you think about it, the more you just sort of go,
yeah, that's exactly it. And something that I struggle with a lot is when people in my life, or people that I talk to, come to me and they're like, Lauren, I think I'm bi-curious. And I'm like, do you feel attracted, if they're a woman now, do you feel attracted to women? They're like, a little bit. And I'm like, it's like, you don't need to be curious about it. Like, if you feel like you're probably, if you get involved with a woman, I think, you're kind of there. Like, if you are really interested in having sex with a woman, or hand-holding, or dates, anything at all, you don't need to be curious about it. Like, you don't need to be apologetic. It's not like I'm vegetarian curious. Like, it just doesn't happen. But there is this big hesitation because it's going to be a big deal, and because they're like, well, I did have one pre-established identity and I'm really scared of swapping it for something else, right? Like, it's very confronting and very difficult to do. So as much as it's fun to have hundreds of women who are like, oh, I'm bi-curious, I'm still just like, you can just relax. Like, you can just not worry about it, and you can have a more fluid or more of a queer identity, or just say, I'm undecided, or I'm exploring my sexuality and things like that. But when someone says that they're bi-curious, I'm just like, oh honey, like, I'll talk to you in a couple of months, and just kind of see how it is, because I'm worried, because being curious and being hesitant means that we're scared, and we should not feel scared. We don't want to have any of these kind of penalties. And I mean, in Australia, in terms of a country to be bisexual in, it's a problem because we're almost in the best case scenario globally. Like, absolutely, we do not have equal marriage rights, and that's total trash, but it's not super unsafe in terms of pain of death like it is in other countries. And the fact is that we still have so much fear, so much stigma, so many limitations for things, but where still the best case scenario is awful. Yeah. What a downer. Gee, let's talk about TV shows. Who likes Kalinda and The Good Wife? Me! Yeah. Kalinda is interesting. She totally falls into the problematic rogue, maybe serial killer-ish. She's quite violent, in The Good Wife, but she was really amazing. And actually having an out and a clearly bisexual woman in the way that she is, talking about having had a husband, but then, she sleeps with women during the show and everything, is fantastic. But she was kind of a very interesting inclusion in what was otherwise quite a mainstream, legal drama, 30-something-year-old woman as the main protagonist kind of thing. And having her when it's not a vampire supernatural for teenagers show, that was really interesting. And there was a lot of women that were even of my mother's age, that was the first time they were seeing non-pornographic lesbian sex. It was actually an awakening. It was great.
It confuses me though, there's the natural genre for bisexuals though, it's vampires and demons and creatures from another world and bisexuals.
I know. Yeah, we're magical, absolutely. Yeah, it's super edgy. I do think a good depiction of bisexual or queer women was, for example, The Legend of Korra. So Korra and Asami, that was not a super sexual relationship. Unfortunately, you could kind of negotiate to say, well, maybe it wasn't clear enough that they ended up together, but they were women that had romantic feelings for men and had relationships with men, and then they sort of came together and had this lovely, respectful relationship. And it was a kid's show. That's awesome. Steven Universe, kid's show, awesome. We're sort of seeing a plurality of sexualities, non-monosexual sexualities, blended families. So I'm very hopeful for the future. The kids are getting a lot of good stuff right now, which is great.
It is good that we're moving away from the way it used to in the past, where, in shows like Buffy, where it would be someone who's clearly had opposite sex relationships or different sex relationships. And then they get into a same, just the slightest same-sex attraction, and then they're canonically gay forever. And it's so frustrating to me, because it's like, well, can't both of them be genuine? Like, are you saying that everything before that was a lie or a delusion? And it just sort of makes it seem that, you know, genuinely being attracted to more than one gender is just not possible, or it's I don't know. It's like it just makes it a very sharp black and white binary, when sexuality is such a broad and subtly shaded spectrum.
Yes. Something that's very difficult, and that we see a lot in comics, for example, is that pre-established comics and sort of the vast history of comic characters in the past were generally all heterosexual. We see some monosexual gay characters come out in comics now, but it's still rare. The issue and the tension that a lot of queer and bisexual people have is that we are the sexuality that gets added, right? Like, we are like the new chapter, and he kisses a man, become bisexual. Like, you know, it always feels like we're kind of like the add-on, or like we're the DLC, right? Like, but you know, it's the person was never started bisexual, but often it's a revelation halfway through. Or the author is not saying up front, or it's not super clear in a character's early life, but then a bisexual, like a non-heteronormative experience happens. So it often feels like people are like, okay, well, you're just the news grab kind of person. You're just the headline, you know, the grabby, clickbaity event in someone's life, instead of being like an authentic, well-rounded personal experience in sexuality. So yeah, so it can be super difficult in that way. And we're also debated all the time. They're like, is he bisexual or is he straight? Like, we get debated all the time as characters in media, because they're like, oh, you know, was it problematic or not? Was it just a purely sexual thing or not? So instead of saying this character is gay or this character is heterosexual, you know, there's just a lot of exhaustion all the time.
And then when you look at video games, bisexuality is actually easier to program. because actually, like, having some sort of parameters whereby you lock off certain choices is extra work for a programmer. So if you just sort of go, oh, whatever, everyone can just be with everybody, it doesn't matter. It's funny though, because I sort of, on the one hand, I think that's great. Like, the first time in The Sims, when I realised that people could be same-sex attracted, I thought that was fantastic. But the longer I thought about it, the more it sort of seemed, oh, so we're just sort of, we're like the path of least resistance now. We're just like, we're just sort of programming default, and it's not like anyone really wants it. It's just like, well, you're the least effort. It seems a little, it's not unambiguously good.
Yeah, we're going to go through a lot of struggles and a lot of imperfect depictions before we get to a healthy rainforest depiction of sexualities. We're still in this messy stage where, for example, BioWare, I think everyone in this room loves BioWare, right? Yes, I love BioWare. And all of their games, because they're narrative-driven games and they're character-driven games, and they have companions, and the companions are romanceable, and maybe you can get sexy with them, and they're awesome. And there's when we were basically tweeting to say, talk to us about your, like, canonically bi favourite characters, everyone's like, it's Vetra, it's Isabella, it's Sarah, it's Anders, it's Fenris. I totally, absolutely love it. The thing is that, for example, in Dragon Age 2, and this is something that, you know, I've written about and ranted a lot, and me and Alana can talk about it forever, is player sexuality. So, yeah, so if someone is a character and an NPC, where, you know, James's male character will saunter up to Isabella and hit on Isabella, and Isabella's totally down with it. I'll saunter up to Isabella and flirt with her, and she's totally down with it. But it's only in the context of that moment and with that one player. Isabella does talk about sleeping with men and women, so she exists as functionally, canonically bisexual. But for example, Anders...
He does.
Pardon?
He does talk about
well, but only for men. So again, you can functionally see Anders as heterosexual. And that's a problem. Like, Anders doesn't exist as a bisexual man outside of having a player sexual conversation. And again, it contributes to what we just talked about bisexuals always being a sexy orientation and understanding. Like, I will only come out if I'm hit on. Like, that's weird. I don't live like that. Like, you know, I try and find a non-sexual way to bring that up to people, because I don't think, woo, ninja, wow, you know, I don't think it's a great idea. It's not a great idea.
It's funny, because I actually like the fact that in Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition, there are canonically, absolutely 100% Kinsey 6 gay characters, like romanceable gay characters. Because it says to me, okay, if these characters are definitely gay and will not respond to advances from people with different sex to them, then that means the ones who are bisexual are meant to be bisexual.
Yes.
And to me, that matters.
Yes, absolutely. So I want more queer depictions altogether, but player sexual is something that I would like people to design around and write around and sort of avoid. And also have like bisexual characters that find a way to, in a non-skeezy way, you know, be functionally bisexual outside of having relationships and having sex with them. Because that's a much healthier approach.
They should just wear their ID tags.
Yeah.
you probably could buy ID tags, right? Sorry, buy D tags.
But you know, like if somebody in a game is disclosing to me that they're bisexual or that they're same-sex attracted, it's like 95% of the time because I hit on them or because I'm trying to like have sex with them. I don't treat every bisexual in my life that way. I promise. So, you know, we need games that talk more about relationships and love and sexuality outside from just what does the player want. Like, can I poke you enough times and have enough conversations with you that we can like unlock a sex scene? Sorry, that was inappropriate with my staff member. No, like, that's what I'm talking about though, right? Like, games still haven't gone that far. They still don't have like a healthy depiction of things outside of what the player wants. So having a really clear sense of a universe and a really clear sense of a world, like in The Witcher, for example, where there's people that are having relationships and mine is not the most important, would be really good, and I want more of that as well. So what have we got going on in the hashtag? Yeah, so people talking about player sexuality. Yeah, once I realised what was going on with player sexuality, it's really tricky because I do want the queer depiction, but I want it to functionally exist itself as well. Let's see that going on.
Just while we're talking about BioWare, well, we were recently, it's not strictly on topic, but I know it's a couple of years old now, but how amazing was Crane?
Yes, that's awesome.
One of my favourite video game characters of all time, and his relationship with Bull was just amazing. And that's the sort of thing, I mean, even though it wasn't, I mean, I'm cisgender, it wasn't representative of me, it was just one of those things that just said, yes, this is doing it right, and this is why BioWare is so amazing. Even though they mess it up sometimes, when they get it right, my God, they get it right.
Yeah, it's it's really, really good. And for me, I would like to see more games that are not just narrative-driven games that explore themes of sexuality and relationships and things like that. The BioWares of the world and the RPGs and things that have relationships and romance in them are often structured really well to have that. But then I've been really impressed by some of the diverse representation that I've seen in Borderlands games, for example. So not purely narrative-driven.
That was a bug. I just love that Axton was a bug.
Was that the Axton?
Axton, yeah.
Character? Can you walk people through that? Because there might be people that aren't
the way that I've read it is that he was meant to, like, it's one of these games where when somebody falls over, you can walk up and press the right button and they'll get back up again. This is a common multiplayer mechanic. Axton was supposed to say something slightly flirty, a little bit sleazy when reviving a female character, but they missed something in the code, and he said it for everybody. And apparently the developers looked at that and went, oh, that wasn't what we intended, but yeah, what the hell, he's bi now. And they just sort of, and then they went back to basics for the character and just completely rewrote him as bi, because I think just the mistake that they made just made them think, actually, that's cool, this is something we should have in there, and they decided to actually do it and do it properly. And they wrote a really good storyline around him as a result of the coding error, which is very cool.
Yeah, very, very awesome. So people are in the hashtag sort of asking about what can authors do more to depict healthy, well-rounded bisexual characters that, again, are not just driven by ding ding, I want sex, tell me if you're into it kind of thing, and like externally defining relationships and sexuality that way. So what are things that authors can do?
Well, bisexuality is always tricky. I mean, because there's always a demand for proof. This is one of the things that bisexual and pansexual, and when I do say bisexual, I do refer to bisexual, pansexual, non-labelled, anybody who's outside the gay, straight, binary. That takes a long time to say, so please forgive me for saying bi. I am thinking of all of you when I say that. And I've completely forgotten what I was talking about.
We're talking about what organs can do, yeah.
Because, I mean, you can show that somebody is opposite sex attracted by showing them, you know, flirting or holding hands or, you know, in a wedding photo or whatever with somebody of the opposite sex. And you can do the same with somebody who's attracted to people of the same sex or a similar sex. Bisexuality is much trickier to represent, especially if the character's monogamous. I mean, I'm not monogamous. I've got a wife of 20 years and a boyfriend of 11 years. So, you know, I can just walk down the street holding hands and go, look at me, I'm being bi!
At a glance, yeah.
But not everybody can do that. And, you know, I've got my poly privilege showing there. And it is tricky, it is really tricky to represent, and it's the kind of thing, I think that's one of the challenges that's ahead of people who are writing stories, not just video game stories, but TV stories and film stories. How do you know, make it clear that a character is bisexual or not gay or straight, but something else, without making it about the sexuality or about the sex.
Yes, absolutely. So in comics, sometimes you can see some really good environmental storytelling where you're in someone's room or something and someone's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was just clearing up after someone left last night, and there's a bra on the floor or something like that, or people that are like, there's 2 pink toothbrushes in a bathroom or something. Like, I'm not trying to go into gender essentialism, but there are things that we can do with environmental storytelling. There are things we can do when characters are talking about their lives or talking about their pasts. We actually talk about our past a lot, we talk about crushes a lot and things like that, and so, you know, it doesn't always have to be romantically or sexually defined, but there can be things in people's lives. You go into a bisexual person's house, there will be things that might look a little bit different, but there are things that are like queer-coded, right? There's outfits, there's hair, there's looks, there's pamphlets for events and things. We saw a whole lot of sort of queer flagging for the characters in Gone Home, for example, before any sexualities were confirmed. So they were looking at like riot girl, punk culture and things like that, way before they were ever making it pretty clear that we were talking about 2 women in a relationship. So, you know, get creative about things, but also diverse creators will express really diverse products. So when you have like a very heteronormative, very heterosexual creator team, you will end up having works that struggle to authentically depict non-heterosexual experiences and lives. So by having diverse creators on the team, you'll actually get a whole lot more subtle, subconscious even content that can make queer readers feel more welcome as well.
And one good example, this is actually an example of a gay character, but who I think is a really good example of how that can be done, and how lessons that can be learned for other sexualities as well, is, I've actually forgotten the name of the character, but the IT nerd character in the 3rd season of Arrow. Anyone watch Arrowverse?
I like Supergirl more.
Flash and everything.
I forget his name as well, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like he's in the series for like half a season before it's just kind of casually mentioned that he has a husband. He's legally married to another man, and it's just it's not an important part of his character, like of who he is. It's important for, I'm sure it was important for same-sex attracted viewers who were watching the show and went, oh my goodness, this character who I really love is like me. That's awesome. But as writers, they didn't go, well, we need to define this guy by his sexuality. He wasn't defined by his sexuality. He was defined by his awkwardness and how funny he was and how he was really quite a weak person amongst a bunch of superheroes, but he was helpful because of the skills that he had, even though he wasn't good at punching people or firing arrows at people. And it was like, oh, and he's queer too. You know, and I think that was fantastic.
I think he's based on Mr. Terrific character from the comics, by the way. Yeah. So I forget exactly, but I know that's superhero.
But I think that's fantastic, and this is one of the challenges. Is like, how do you talk about a character's sexuality without then making them all about their sexuality? And it's a narrative challenge. And this is hard for good stories and well-written things. And as much as I love video games, they do tend not to be super well written. Is that controversial? Am I going to get lynched for saying that? I don't think so.
So something that I want to invite us all to talk about is what bisexual and what queer consumers can do to help improve depictions that are in media for things. So can we talk about fan fiction for a second and fan art and things like that? So fan art and fan fiction is one of those things that can be really tricky and really confronting for creators. Some creators and some authors feel distinctly uncomfortable about it. There can be issues of IP if people are monetizing these fan works, and I completely understand that. But also I've definitely seen and talked to creators of media that were quite confronted by the thought of someone queering their characters, and then they read it and they're like, actually that would have been a better relationship. And that's actually really, really good, because a lot of the time if that creator themselves, is heteronormative, that could be the first time they ever actually thought of it, or they didn't commit themselves to having a queer storyline because they were very worried about getting it wrong, which is also fair enough. But what do you think consumers can do to help improve depictions in media?
I think we're lucky now that communication is so easy. I mean, we do get overwhelmed by too much of it, but with Twitter and every other form of social media, it's now easier to actually let developers know, let developers and publishers know what you thought. So really, that's the most. As a queer person, one of the most powerful things you can do is just to be visible. Being visible and being out is a political act, and it's an important one. Not everybody is able to. Not everybody is in a position in their lives where they can. But for those who are able to, I mean, this is why I'm from Melbourne. This is why every year I'll go to Melbourne Pride Parade and I'll walk down the street and I will say I'm bisexual and I'll be visibly bisexual, because simply being out there and being visible is one of the most powerful statements you can make. And that's exactly how we should be responding to those who create the media that we like. It's just be visible to them, be audible, write to them nicely, get in contact with them. Organise with other people who think the same as you do, collectively communicate with them, make web pages, make petitions if necessary, but just be visible, be loud, because the louder you are, the more likely they are to really pay attention to you and take on board the lessons that you're trying to teach them.
I think definitely acknowledge characters and creators that are bisexual for being bisexual, and again, not obsessing and being too fixated on the non-heterosexual relationship or context that you enjoy seeing them in. So if you really like a male-male relationship, but that male-male relationship would still have one of those male characters being canonically queer or bi, try not to erase that. Try to still find a way of acknowledging it and not be like, oh, I was straight until I met you. Like, oh my gosh, it just doesn't happen that way. So definitely work on not erasing the bisexuality, even if what you're most passionate about is the homosexual or more homoerotic interpretation of that relationship as well. And something that I wanted to talk a bit about is queer baiting in media. So that's something that a lot of us talk about and have strong feelings about, like Pop Teen Wolf, whatever. But when there is content that is kind of a queerish depiction, or it's hinting at something, or there's flirtation, or there's tension between two characters that would make it a queer relationship, and then that show does not capitulate on that, never shows the relationship. It was Sherlock. The list just never ends, and this is often with a two-man kind of situation in media. Queer baiting is really difficult because I absolutely understand everyone's pain of saying, just make them kiss. Oh my god. I've been there, and I'm also that person.
When I saw The Force Awakens.
Oh my god.
I saw it with an ex of mine, and he was sitting beside me, and when Finn and Poe sort of reunite, And I heard my ex beside me just go, "Oh, just kiss off there."
Super relatable, super relatable. Often queer baiting and that queer kind of content is the creators trying to acknowledge. It is the creators trying to engage with the consumers. Often there are gigantic, prohibitive financial reasons why they never actually commit and they never actually depict it. We're talking about distribution deals that mean that they can't access a third of their market because it's totally blocked from the United Arab Emirates, it's totally blocked from China, it's totally blocked from so much distribution. I'm not saying that's right. I don't think that's right. I'm glad that I don't work in a media that is that hamstrung, because the games that James and I work with are a lot smaller and a lot of them have queer characters and queer depiction, but I understand these gigantic limitations that TV, media, even comics can have on explicitly showing things. So for me, queer baiting is very painful, because I'm like, I just want you to go there. I just want them to be happy together, but also I understand, and I think that's all of us noticing and seeing the growing pains that we're seeing in media. We're still going to need to see some people break through, and then their careers not be totally immolated and those TV shows not completely failing. So let's try and be as positive as we can with shows that do have queer potential, basically.
And there's a sort of cousin to that kind of queer baiting, which is, it's probably a type of queer baiting, I'm not sure, but the word of God queer character. If you're familiar with this idea.
What is this?
This is where, Dumbledore is a perfect example, where it's like, it's never really depicted in the show, but then, or the show or the book or whatever, but then one of the creators or the author of the book will come out and say, oh, by the way, this character was bisexual or gay or whatever. And it's like, well, why wasn't that ever depicted in the story? And it's like, squirrel.
Yeah, absolutely super difficult. And I think it's still a good thing, and I'm still thankful. Someone was saying J.K. Rowling, like, I'm still thankful for those things. They still make a big impact, and I'm still hearing that happen more and more in the last 5 years than I did for the previous 25, which is awesome. But it still definitely is an issue. Like, please find a way to show the character in the moment so that someone can't functionally choose to ignore it. Because, you know, if you have to be a super fan to understand the queer history of a character, it's not the best depiction. Like, I'm thankful, but it's not the best depiction.
And then it's really frustrating when it actually regresses. Like the Constantine TV show wasn't great. But it was also very disappointing in that he's, in the comics, John Constantine's canonically bisexual, and in the feature film and in the ill-fated TV show, I remember I read an article, read an interview about the TV show where they basically said, oh, we're not going to make it, we're not going to address that. It's just, it's not the direction we want to go in for the show, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, but, okay, so he's not Constantine now. He's some guy with a Cockney accent and everything, but he's not. It's somebody with the same name, but it's obviously not him.
And it then does come back to like the transient nature of bisexuality as well. So it's like, well, in this universe, this character is this, and we see this especially in comics. Or like this writer's storyline has Selena Kyle as being bisexual, but this author's storyline, she's just heterosexual. But if a character is made gay, then they are gay from this day forward, kind of thing, or you know, they start that way. So very difficult, very convoluted, very multi-layered. And
Deep Space Nine is such a great example.
Yeah. What happens?
Major Kira in the parallel universe, she's not only evil, but she's also, you know, a vamp, and she's implied to be bisexual. And it's like, so good guy Kira is straight as far as we know, but when she gets evil, then she gets all queer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit gross.
That's absolutely it. And I mean, the narrative of the queer villain as well, like we've all seen Disney movies, and being queer people in a queer community, we probably all love the villains more than heroes, right? Because a lot of society makes us feel like the villain. Like, we are the other, we're the weird one, we're selfish, we're bizarre. We like the dramatic clothing and weird makeup. And that happens a lot. So the villain narrative again. And so a lot of the time bisexual representation does get loaded with that.
Are there any of us in this room who didn't feel at least a bit of sympathy for Magneto in the film version? Just like, yeah, I mean, I don't agree with his methods, but yeah.
I absolutely. I mean, even just Marvel and X-Men things being like, this is an awakening and a power, and it's dangerous, and people will want to control you, and you need to find your people to protect yourself and to protect each other, ended up with X-Men and that whole canon being really popular with queer communities, because the narrative is so easy for us to understand and to co-opt and relate to. Like, I'm about to talk on a panel soon about why do queer people love robots and androids so much, and really start to unpack that a whole lot as well.
I think what you're saying is that bisexuality is a superpower.
Yes, it is. I think we can all agree with that, absolutely. And so we are getting close to the end of our time together, so we have enough time to swap over to panels. Just want to check out in the hashtag. Thank you so much to everyone who's been expressing things and chatting to us.
We do have a hand up over here. I should throw over. Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to ask about word of going after the fact, but also during the fact, because Dido came out and said that Feminist's entire history with men was forced sexual relations. That he was basically repeatedly sexually assaulted, and that's how he, became comfortable with men. And it's like,
wow.
That's it right there.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
it's kind of like killing off and also queer-baiting and also lots of other things.
There's a lot of layers to that. Yeah, and I'm distinctly uncomfortable with that kind of thing, because discovering sexuality through trauma is not. No.
It's like the world's worst lasagna. It's just like layers. One layer and the next layer is even worse.
The majority of people who play games went, no, that doesn't exist.
Or that it's really unhealthy. Yeah, and that's absolutely a problem. Definitely difficult. I mean, we see in terms of even where Australia is at right now, like I can marry my boyfriend, but I can't marry my girlfriend. It's that kind of issue of like, well, this is the valid, okay, stable thing, and this is the crazy party time relationship that must just be defined by sex. And it's that kind of issue. So when people say, oh, well, marriage is this heterosexual history and everything, and we shouldn't take that away from them, or we should chuck marriage out or just ignore it, I'm still like, I would still like to have that, because that's still an implied validity as well for it.
Or they say that marriage is a Christian thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's still really important culturally in our society. I may never choose to marry a woman, but gosh darn, I'd like it to be an option, so I can choose to say no, instead of just not the person who asked. I wouldn't do that, but I can still choose that for myself. It's not a framework that I have to try and make myself fit with. Difficult.
Like two characters who have the same but yeah, I'm married to a man. My bisexuality is now invisible unless I say explicitly.
Did everyone hear that? We're being asked about the depiction of the validity of a bisexual relationship with somebody who ends up in an opposite sex relationship, and how essentially it can be depicted that their bisexuality has just been swept away.
Yeah.
It's like,
in order to be out, you have to continually remind people that no, that's not actually. Like in media, when you see bisexual people who end up in straight relationships, they're immediately straight forever. It's the same way as if they just build their day for like the villa or something. So it's just
Absolutely. It's difficult, because then if a woman graduates to being with a man, all the queer people are disappointed and all the straight people are relieved. And that's like a real big bummer, and I'm sure a lot of people in the room can relate. Am I queer enough? Like that's a big stress that's on the mind of people that are like me, that may not be so for someone who would identify as a lesbian. It's very, very difficult. And with media depictions, they're then saying, we're married, how's that ex of yours? Or, I really get along with, or like, hey, we both checked out that man, ooh, cute. There are things that we can do, like in terms of the actual media themselves and consumers, but being kind to each other about our sexual and emotional and romantic histories and futures as well. And just being really chill about it as well, like just not freaking out. Well, I think we are going to have to start to wrap it up. I'm still going to be in the hashtag. I'll still be around on Twitter. Same for you, James, as well. Just want to thank everybody for being in the chat, and thanks for being here.